The Sinclair family, comprised of parents Michael and Evelyn, their teenage daughter Lily, and their young son Tommy, moved into Briarwood Manor, a sprawling estate that had stood for over a century. Nestled deep in the countryside, the house was a picture of antiquated charm with its creaking floorboards and ivy-clad walls. The locals whispered about its dark history, but Michael and Evelyn dismissed the tales as superstitious nonsense. They were eager for a fresh start, away from the chaos of city life. The house's previous owners had left most of their antique furniture behind, giving the manor an eerie, lived-in feel. Dusty portraits of stern-faced ancestors lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow the Sinclairs as they explored their new home. Despite the house's grand appearance, there was something unsettling about the way it seemed to breathe, as if it were alive. That night, as the family settled into their new home, a chilling wind howled through the corridors. Evelyn tucked Tommy into bed, reassuring him that everything was fine. The room, painted in soft pastels, was meant to be a safe haven for the little boy. However, as the clock struck midnight, Evelyn and Michael were jolted awake by the sound of Tommy's cries. They rushed to his room, finding him sobbing uncontrollably. "Something is under my bed," he wailed. Michael bent down, peering into the darkness beneath the bed frame, but saw nothing. "It's just your imagination, Tommy," Evelyn soothed, stroking his hair. But as they left the room, both parents felt a lingering unease. The air seemed colder in Tommy's room, and an inexplicable sense of dread hung heavy in the air. Over the following nights, Tommy's cries became a routine. Each time he claimed that something whispered to him from under the bed. His descriptions grew more detailed and horrifying. He spoke of a voice that hissed his name, promising to take him away. Lily, who was fascinated by the paranormal, began to sense that Tommy wasn't imagining things. She felt an inexplicable chill whenever she entered his room, and she sometimes caught fleeting glimpses of shadows moving in the corners of her eyes. One night, she decided to stay in his room. As the hours ticked by, she heard faint whispers, indistinguishable but unmistakably real. Terrified, she told her parents, but they remained skeptical. Desperation clawed at her, and she knew she had to find proof. Lily began researching the history of Briarwood Manor. She discovered that it had once been an orphanage, where children mysteriously vanished without a trace. The tales spoke of a malevolent entity that preyed on the innocent. There were stories of unexplained deaths and disappearances, all linked to the house. Determined to uncover the truth, Michael installed surveillance cameras throughout the house, focusing particularly on Tommy's room. They waited anxiously, hoping to capture evidence of the strange occurrences. The next morning they reviewed the footage. At first everything seemed normal, but then a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness beneath Tommy's bed. It was grotesque, with elongated limbs and hollow, sunken eyes that seemed to devour the light. Its skin was a sickly gray, stretched taut over protruding bones. The creature crawled slowly towards Tommy's bed, its movements deliberate and unnerving. Just as it reached the bed, the camera showed that Tommy had mysteriously vanished from the room. The creature paused, then turned sharply towards the camera, its eyes locking onto the lens with a malevolent intelligence. A second later, it vanished into thin air. The family was thrown into chaos. Panic-stricken, they searched the house frantically, but found no trace of Tommy. The air grew colder, and a feeling of dread permeated every room. They knew they had to confront whatever malevolent force haunted their home. Lily suggested a séance to communicate with the spirits, hoping to uncover Tommy's whereabouts. Reluctantly, Michael and Evelyn agreed. They gathered in Tommy's room, surrounding a makeshift altar with candles and a Ouija board. As they began the séance, the temperature dropped sharply. The candles flickered wildly, casting eerie shadows on the walls. "Is there anyone here with us?" Lily asked, her voice trembling. The planchette moved slowly, spelling out, "Yes." "Where is Tommy?" Evelyn cried out, tears streaming down her face. "Under the bed," the board spelled out. At that moment, a loud thump came from beneath the bed. Michael lifted the bed frame, revealing an empty, dark void that seemed to stretch into infinity. Summoning every ounce of courage, Michael reached into the void, feeling an icy grip latch onto his arm. He pulled with all his might, and out came Tommy, unconscious but alive. The entity, enraged, manifested fully in the room, its hideous form more terrifying than before. The creature loomed over them, its presence filling the room with an almost tangible darkness. Its eyes, black and soulless, bore into the family's very souls. The room's temperature plummeted, frost forming on the windows and the floor. The air was thick with the smell of decay and a distant, echoing whisper. The family stood together, facing the creature. Evelyn held a crucifix, reciting prayers she barely remembered from her childhood. The entity screeched, its form flickering and distorting in the candlelight. Michael, in a fit of desperation, began shouting at the entity, demanding it to leave his family alone. Lily joined in, holding up a book of protective spells she had found in the local library. The creature recoiled, its form becoming more transparent as they chanted. It was working, but the malevolence in its eyes only grew. Suddenly, Lily remembered an old legend she had read about the house. "We need to cleanse it with fire," she shouted. Michael hesitated, but seeing no other option, he grabbed a can of gasoline from the garage and began dousing the room. Evelyn and Lily dragged Tommy out of the house while Michael set the fire. The flames roared to life, consuming the room and the entity within it. The house groaned as if in agony, but the malevolent presence began to dissipate. The creature's screeches turned into wails of pain. And then silence. The fire department arrived just in time to save most of the house. The sinister room was reduced to ashes, and with it, the malevolent force that had haunted their lives. Tommy woke up, dazed but unharmed, his memory of the events mercifully hazy. The family, shaken but relieved, vowed never to speak of the horrors they had endured. They left Briarwood Manor, never to return. But the memories of that night lingered in their minds. Though they had escaped, they knew that some evils never truly die. They merely slumber, waiting for the next unsuspecting victim to disturb their restless slumber. As they drove away, the charred remains of the house stood as a grim reminder of the darkness that once dwelled within. However, weeks after they had moved to a new town, Lily started having nightmares. She would wake up in the middle of the night, hearing whispers echoing from under her bed. One night, unable to bear it any longer, she peeked beneath her bed and found nothing but darkness. As she sighed in relief and rolled back, she saw, in the corner of her room, a pair of hollow, sunken eyes watching her, a cruel reminder that their battle with the darkness might not be over after all. If you have interesting stories and want to tell about them, send them to me by email. Link in description. Bye.